everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Minority Corner. I am your host, James Arthur M, and today I am joined by our social media manager, Sam Action Jackson, actress extraordinaire. She is going to be sitting with us today. And y'all, the stats are in around the pandemic, around for the Black community and Black businesses and vaccination rates. They're not good. Surprise, racism going to racism. But I also saw a very adorable movie called Sylvie's Love, which we're going to talk about with the lovely Tessa Thompson. And we are just drooling for, we are just drooling for a lot of these hotties up in this movie. And it's Women's History Month, and we dive into an amazing conversation about Billie Holiday, the legend, the queer legend, spoiler alert. If you didn't already know that, you're already learning here. And Andra Day recently played Billie Holiday in the United States vs. Billie Holiday, which just sent me down this amazing Billie Holiday rabbit hole. And we highlight her story and how really the story about Billie Holiday is both the genesis for the civil rights movement before there was a civil rights movement, and the war on drugs and the power of strange fruit, the legacy, her tenacity, and the face of adversity and trauma. I mean, this woman, it's just an amazing inspirational story. It's one of those stories that you think you know, but you really have no idea. And then Sam Jackson is going to tell us all about why do we celebrate Black History Month in February and Women's History Month in March. Sam's got the answers for you. So all this and so much more, get ready to learn, laugh, and play right here on an all-new Minority Corner. Let's go. All right, Sam, do you want the good news or the bad news? How do you want to start?
Lord have mercy. How do we
We're just jumping in. Do you want good news or the bad news?
You know what? Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Give me the bad news first.
Okay, so
You know
the
what I mean?
numbers are in.
Uh-oh.
There's all kinds of numbers that are in, and there are two that are kind of like combined. So I kind of want to like hit them both. One, when we go back to like the beginning of like, we're not even lubing you up this week. There's no giggles. It's
None.
just like, bam, here's some
Into
fucked up information. Yes. So the racial business divide, I just saw these numbers. I heard these numbers and I clutched not only my pearls, I clutched the pearls of the person next to me. I clutched, the other person's pearls. Like I just was clutching pearls, and then I was like, oh my god, there's a pandemic,
diamonds, all the things. Oh no, you was
I
touching
know,
too many COVID pearls.
I was, yes.
Girl.
And I'm probably part of the statistics, so my Black business closed. So we're talking about the immediate onslaught of the pandemic, the businesses that closed. People are like, oh my god, all these businesses were closing. But let's look at like whose businesses were closed, who closed, because 17% of white-owned companies closed. 32% of Latinx businesses closed, and then 41% of Black businesses closed. And then when you look at that, 95% of Black-owned businesses weren't even able to qualify for PPE. Like when there was all that stuff that was happening, there was a lot of different qualifications that certain businesses need to have. If you knew a banker, you were dope and you were going to be able to like get in, like all these different things. And only 1% of Black business owners even see their loans approved for even starting their businesses. So even when you go even further back, the system is just all kinds of fucked up. So it's like, it's a huge staggering amount of Black-owned businesses that are already off to a difficult start to even survive. Like you had to survive, Tulsa riots or any sort of hoop or anything to get started. And then our businesses got hurt the hardest at the start of the pandemic.
95% not able to qualify for PPE is insane.
Yeah. Because
like,
this is
what
the way
were the
that
qualifications.
there's all kinds of, there's like different things, like also too, like you had to have a certain amount of people who are working for you, but some Black-owned businesses have, it's just like, it's just me, or it's just like me and one other person. So or it's like the websites are really confusing, or having access to these websites or to the banks. Like there just is all these different things that our communities tend to continuously be that much more disadvantaged, and we're the first ones on the chopping block to go. And so when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, like this is also part of Black Lives Matter. Our existence should matter. Our businesses should matter as well. I do want to celebrate now that we've got that out of our system.
Ooh, gone, released.
First of all, I saw the cutest movie. It's not often I get to just see a cute movie about Black people being cute in the 1950s, because it just doesn't exist really.
That's a problem. Yeah.
It's starring Tessa Thompson and produced by Tessa Thompson. I'm like, go off, Go off, Tessa Thompson, who is a delight. I met her at the Black Panther red carpet
Did
premiere. She's a
you?
delightful woman.
I
She
believe
just
it.
she's a delight.
I
She's
just
just a
want to
delight.
go. Just Tessa Thompson. I know you're listening. Just one, maybe date. This is my official. I'm asking you to let me buy you a drink. If we could just be like friends, cute. If you want to like, I don't know if it's a date, also cute. But if it's not,
Okay. Anyways, I love that she's like turning her Marvel money into magic. She executive produced this movie called Sylvie's Love, set in the 1950s. It's guy meets girl, but girl was kind of with somebody else at first, and they had a summer, but then things start happening. But it's also like he's a jazz musician, and also what's so dope is this isn't spoilers. But she is like, what I also love is like she wants to work in the movie, like in the TV industry. She's like, I'm gonna be a producer, and they're like, oh, you couldn't possibly, and she just does it. And it's just like the movie isn't met, like no one gets hosed in the movie. No, I don't think I heard the N-word once in this movie.
oh my
It's
gosh.
very sort of idealistic PG-13, but at the same time, like it made me think about like my grandparents or like other. I know that there are Black people who are falling in love and enjoying their lives.
Yes.
There is a
It's
little
not always
moment.
about a struggle.
Yes, and there's a little moment that does happen, and they don't like. It's not like they just ignore that they're Black. Like all of the same rules still apply and exist, right?
Yeah.
But it's not about white people. It's not, the movie is like not about white people. It's just really Black people in their world doing their things in the 1950s, trying to fall in love and find love, and then jazz music and a little bit of like the fall of jazz music, how like Motown was coming in and jazz was just on the way out. And Kerry Washington's boo, Nmandi, he's a football player. He is in it. Like he is acting, he's the lead in it. Nmandi.
Yeah.
Nmandi
Oh yeah. Oh
as
Lord.
Moga.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
you
I
want to
didn't mean
know
to just
who?
objectify this man.
Oh,
He's very beautiful.
please do, and keep those objectifying googly goggly eyes, awooga eyes out, because you know who else is also in it?
Who?
Ray J. Jean from Bridgerton. That hunk of a
He's also
man. I could
beautiful.
just drool all over him. And I love it because I didn't really get into Bridgerton. So I love that he's
I'm
popping
not
up. And
into it either.
I just love that he's popping up in other things so I can just drool all over him and just
Oh,
literally like, awooga. And he does an American
yes.
accent better than I can. Like, just a talented man. I'm like, oh, okay. Is that how I do it?
For those of you who are just listening, I have a poster of Billie Holiday in my bedroom, and you are seeing that right now, all in my space.
And this is a shout out to why y'all need to watch like the YouTube videos that come out, because then you can see, oh, I need to see that picture of Sam's Billie Holiday. Can I see it? And you see
Let
her
me see
cute
it.
ass little room and
Great.
like
Oh,
her
thank
recording
you.
studio. She's ready.
Yes,
I knew it was
ma'am.
Billie Holiday when you sashayed your computer over, and that was a sachet. I
Yeah.
didn't know
Yes, of
computers
course.
could sachet, but yours sashayed over towards her, and I could
Yeah.
I knew it was her because of the gardenia
Ugh,
in her hair.
it's so good. She's
Signature
just
look.
everything. Billie Holiday. I know you're about to get into her. I'm sorry.
No,
I
this
just
is a
have to look
shared
a little
space.
share moment. Um, her voice was
Mm,
the voice that allowed me to love my singing voice or to start to accept
mm,
it. I never did.
mm,
I never liked it. I never thought I could sing. And then listening to Billie Holiday growing up and her singing Come Rain or Come Shine just like sparked my soul. And now
mm.
that's like my go to song whenever anything. But yeah, Billie Holiday is a huge part of my life and my career as a vocalist. So,
Speak on it. Well, you could probably chime in on some of this then too. Like I probably won't, you'd be like, oh, and don't you forget that she on
oh
December
no, get
4th.
into it. Because
You
you said you
okay?
told me to watch the movie, and I was like, because I know you talk
I
about this all the time, but I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that emotional like journey. Cause like I just know I'm gonna be angry
of
and
course
sad and
I didn't realize what a stan of hers, like I now understand, like you would need, space for it,
Mhm.
like I totally get it. It would be like me, like if something, I don't even want to speak to it. No,
Mhm.
not even going to.
Goodbye.
If something
Anyway.
happened to somebody that I really cared and loved about, like an idol, Miss Nasty, if something were to happen and someone was like, "Oh, watch this biopic," I was like, I can't
It's too
do it.
much.
I
Like
couldn't.
her life is
So
like she's so beautiful and it's also tragic and like all the things. Ooh, y'all.
Yes. So so the United States versus Billie Holiday. First of all the snaps to Andra Day, who our mutual friend Ben Randall went to high school with. Friend of
Oh
the
my God.
pod, Ben
What?
Randall. Yes, go text him
And
about it,
Randall was
girl.
my very first professional director.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So look at that little
He took a
C of that
chance on
little
little Sam
trifecta.
Jackson.
And that was the first time I saw you was in that production, which to this day is one of my favorite shows I've ever
Oh,
bear
such a good
witness
show.
to.
It's called The Submission. It's by Jeff Talbot. Find it and read it. It's a beautiful play.
Such a good play. And it was in this world before people were actually really having the conversation. Y'all were having the conversation of, again, where racism exists today, microaggressions, like the work that still needs to be done. Because almost like people were like we were making it up. Like, we're like, oh no, racism's still here. Like, you guys, come on. You know, they made us like we were that crazy white girl in the horror movie who's like, someone's trying to kill us. And everyone's like, calm down, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Murder doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep. And it took a while.
Ugh.
It took about until halfway through the movie. So United States versus Billie Holiday. Amazing movie. Lee Daniels directed it. Sexy ass man from Moonlight who was in the third act of Moonlight, Trevante Rhodes, who was oh, I'm all grown up and
I'm a cook now.
I work and I work out. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
I want something to eat.
Oh, I do. You
Let me
come
have a
on
taste.
over here. This is just, you know what? It's been a long pandemic, girl. It's been a long pandemic. As I already told Ben Randall when he was on this podcast, I don't know what the time frame is for gay people to be able to give blood, but whatever it is, I can do it. So give me this Trevante. Give me this. And who is the other one from Bridgerton? Give me Mr. Bridgerton.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
All of them can get it. This is too much. Is it the sound? You know what? I'm just imagining emojis like the drool emoji. That's what I'm thinking of. Is it too
Well, there's
much?
also like a nom nom kind of.
Oh yeah, you know.
what I'm saying?
Slap it on some knobs. There it is. Slap it on some knobs. Line them
James
up.
Martin, everyone. James Martin.
All right, Billie Holiday. Let's give some.
Yes.
This is Minority Corner. This is how we do it. So, Susan Laurie Parks wrote the script. I mean, woof. Yes. And if y'all don't know Susan Laurie Parks, go Google. Let me Google that for you. Y'all gotta do some work around here. So, but she did do Venus and Top Dog, Underdog. Like, she just is a prolific writer. And the movie maybe mainly focuses on the later period of Billie Holiday's life. What I really liked about this, because sometimes biopics, sometimes like, I hate the first, like, Spider-Man or the first anytime they're like the origin stories. I'm not a big fan of the origin stories. I'm like, get me into the good stuff. And this movie does that. It really is focusing on her later part of her life, really around Strange Fruit, which we're going to get to in a moment, and around when the FBI and the government was relentlessly just persecuting her towards the end of her life. Yes. And then when you watch this film, you realize that, I mean, Billie Holiday is such a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Like, there was a lot of this is happening in 1939. There's no protest around this time. There's no organized movement. She is actually the thing that really ignites this. And she stood out there all on her lonesome for the work that she was doing. She's also the catalyst too for the war on drugs, which we're going to dive into. And when we think about the war on drugs, we must think of it as a war on Black and brown and poor people to only uphold the caste system of America. That's its purpose. That was its purpose. You were sold a bill of goods. So when you see anything that's relating to this war on drugs, and please know that you are witnessing the caste system at work in front of your eyes. I mean, I can go home right now, right? Just lay it down.
Goodbye. And that is Minority Corner. Like, oh, Lord.
It was also a war on jazz music, which I also, too, just want to know, like, which I guess is a war on Black people, because people were all afraid of jazz music. Yes. Like, people were, like, up in arms. They were like, jazz music's the devil. And, like, white people would, like, flock to Harlem because they're like, ooh, we got to get some of this jazz. But, of course, when, like, any Black person was, like, again, it's Black Lives Matter type stuff. Like, when I'm sure, like, if a Black person outside of the clubs walked by them, they would clutch their purse or would
I
not
mean,
be
it
afraid to
was
drop the
the,
N-word.
Ella Fitzgerald not being able to stay in the hotel that she performed at. It was Marilyn Monroe being an ally and saying, you're going to, I will come every night that you let her perform and she stays here. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was you want to consume us, but we don't get any of your respect or any of your love or any of your
Mm.
patience, right? But you just want to
Yep.
consume. You want to consume it.
Consume and
Oof.
then poop out what you don't. You're just like done. Consume
Just
and poop. So, Billie Holiday, born Eleanor Fagan, although some say Harris. There's a debate about it. I don't know. Someone couldn't see. Yeah. April 7th, 1915 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Although she would grow up in Baltimore, Maryland, her dad was Clarence Holiday, who was a successful jazz musician, but he didn't really have any interest in being a dad. Apparently he was a really great person, but he was just like, gotta play my music.
Well, a great person. That's a whole.
Well, I'm saying in this documentary that I was watching, everyone was like, he was really great. He was a fun guy, especially when he liked to drink. He was still fun, but he wouldn't take care of his daughter or his wife. So she had a rough life. So pin on that. All the stuff that we're about to talk about. Rough life, right? And you just think about all the stuff that she ended up doing. So she ended up growing up in a brothel. Her mother was a prostitute. And at 10, she was raped by a 40-year-old man. And then she was sent to reform school. And because they pretty much had blamed it on her. They were like, oh, it's your fault that this happened. Yes. Sent her off to this reform school for African-American girls, which I could just only imagine the other young girls who were there. Like, it's, again, just baby prison, right? Mm-hmm. The crime was she is black, and this happened. Yep. Again, pre-existing condition, she was born black.
There you go.
See, the doctor was right. It's and yes, and so the nuns blamed her. They did some fucked up shit. So they would lock her in a room with dead bodies as punishment. Wow. And I forget what the reasoning was. I was listening to there's this NPR that I was listening to.
Where did you get these dead bodies?
I don't know why the nunnery had dead bodies. Because I think people would die and they were like, oh, let's get them for the, I think before they do the funeral, they were at the church or this reform school. I didn't get the full details on that, but
that is,
yes, it's fucked up.
Little sus.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
No, I mean, again, these nuns, some of them, I mean, not all nuns, but this is fucked up.
Not all blank. You know what?
I know. I don't want Sister Mary Joseph listening to this and writing me some email. I don't need to hear it, Mystery.
Agree, though, is what I'm trying to say.
She would, Mrs. Mary Clarence. She's at the one in Vegas.
Happy day.
Okay, you got me. We're only on.
Okay, go off.
Paragraph 1. Okay, so trauma, right? All that already trauma. So she was like, fuck this nuns. I'm not about this. And she probably said this because she did like to curse. Like, she loved her swear words. So she was like, fuck y'all, I'm out of this. So she went back to her mom. Her mom was working in a brothel. That's what she knew. And she was like, so she started working there as well. She had other girls working under her. And it's tragic because, I mean, really, it's just tragic, right? That whole entire scenario, it's fucked up. But she's such a strong person to persevere through this because she'd also like be listening to jazz music and she would sing along. She loved Bessie Smith. She loved Louis Armstrong. And she loved just jazz music and she wanted to sing the way that they played, which was like unheard of. Like, she saw her voice as like an instrument. Yeah. And so that's how she saw her voice. She was not trained. She just had this gift and would just follow along, and that's what her voice would do. And I think you would attest to this too, really changed the way we hear music and the way people sang. Like, she changed everything. She just pioneered and changed it up. So she ended up in New York, and around 1930s, she began singing in light clubs. Not light clubs. There was light there, but it was at night. So she was singing. What's a light club during the day? She
What?
was singing in these nightclubs, and she
Oh,
renamed
gotcha.
herself Billie after the film star Billy Dove, who was her favorite. She saw every movie by Billy Dove. She loved Billy Dove, was obsessed with Billy Dove. And at 18, she was discovered by producer John Hammond while she was performing in a Harlem jazz club. And he was instrumental in getting her work, and he linked her up with Betty Goodman, who I will not refer to as the king of swing because
Mm.
he stole that swing music, which is just jazz music, from black people,
Hmm.
and we get all the credit for it.
Hmm.
So, okay, cool. She sang with Betty Goodman, that guy who did some swing. She also appeared with Duke Ellington in the film
Mm.
Symphony in Black. So, I mean, she's just bebopping around with all these people, like
Love
hooking it
it.
up. They're like, you're talented. We love you. This is great. So, she got nicknamed, she's known to a lot of people as Lady Day, and
Mm-hmm.
how she got her nickname. So, she became friends with the saxophonist named Lester Young. He was part of Count Basie's band,
Mm-hmm.
and they started singing all together. She would sing with them, and they would dub themselves the Royals. And so he was like, "Ooh, you Lady Day," and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna call you Prez." Which I think is which I think is interesting because the president is not part of a royal family, but I don't care. I
I
don't
love
care.
that.
And she's called him Prez because she thought he was the greatest. And so
Yeah.
Prez is also featured in the movie, played by the guy who played a young version of Chris Rock in Everybody Hates Chris.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep,
I know
yep.
exactly that person.
Yeah, he's up in there blowing his horn. I'll be bop a doop a doop.
Cute.
Why is that my horn? Is
Which
that a
also
horn?
like makes my heart very happy because like I don't know if you're about to talk about this, but Andra Day is but acting.
Yes, I thought that was so interesting.
I
That
love
Andre
it.
Day, Lady Day, and Andre Day did not want to play this part. She did not want to. She was, I mean, first of all, she was, I mean, just snaps to her all along. Like when you see this performance, she really conjured up, like you, I feel like I am watching Lady Day. Like she really conjured up this woman, and really did the work on it. And she wasn't,
Mm.
highly recommend, there's an interview that Oprah did with Lee Daniels, her, Travante, and Susan Lloyd Parks. It's on Hulu. The film's on Hulu, and they also did a sit down interview with it. Highly recommend it. She was like, I didn't want to do it, but you know, she prayed on it, and it all happened. And she's so phenomenal, powerhouse in it.
Her stage name. Sorry, I just looked this up, but her stage name was inspired by Lady Day.
Get full fucking circle,
My
and
whole heart. That just, that makes me so happy.
she kills it. The song, like the performances, the singing, and she really went in deep to this role. She's like, I don't smoke cigarettes, but she started smoking cigarettes.
Ugh,
She's like, I
yeah.
don't drink, but I started drinking.
Ugh.
She's like, I don't do drugs. She did not start doing drugs, but she did surround herself with
Some people who did a whole lot of cocaine and maybe a little bit of heroin.
yes, and just sort of going through that whole entire process, and like you see that performance. We're gonna get to the hair on in a second, but
Mhm.
you know, so she was touring with Count Basie in 1937. So she's just working it out, doing her thing, and then she was up with Artie Shaw and his orchestra. You know, he's a big deal, whatever. And she broke new ground by touring with them, and she became one of the first female African American vocalists to work with a white orchestra, which is like, yay! But
Yeah.
also to be the first, I mean, you can look at Twitter and see what happens when a black woman's the first for anything. There
Mm.
was a black woman who is given this show that to recount Star Wars stuff. Twitter is white. Twitter can't have it. It's just too much. Like, you know, so they white folks weren't having it, and it made it really difficult for her when she was touring with them. Sometimes they couldn't even find restaurants that would serve her,
Yep.
so she would sometimes have to get a burger to go just in case, because she didn't know the next time she'd be able to eat.
Uh-huh.
So sleeping arrangements were also difficult sometimes,
Mhm.
because they couldn't sometimes find hotels to be willing to sleep this human fucking being that people would be willing to come and like see perform. What is like a
You might
fucking
have just
seal?
seen her yesterday and wanted her autograph, but no, she
Mm-hmm.
can't sleep in my hotel.
Mm-hmm.
No, she
Mm-hmm.
can't eat in my diner.
Yes, very similar to a lot of stuff that was happening with Dorothy Dandridge, you know, even just a decade or so later. And so one time they couldn't find accommodations, and like sometimes she'd be able to sleep on the bus, and one time the band stood up with her. They're like, no, this is bullshit. Except for Artie Shaw, he was like, I'm going to sleep in this hotel. And she was like, I'm out. This is bullshit. Fuck you. I'm Billie Holiday. And she left. She was like, I'm done. Ooh. So we're going to talk about Strange Fruit here. Okay. So Strange Fruit, this is, so she went solo, right? She was like, I'm out. She was, you know, she was Beyonce before there was a Beyonce, right? This is, you know, just to give it in context for the kids. Like, I don't get it. Beyonce. Oh, okay. Now I get it. Okay. Got you. Yes. So she performed at the New York Cafe Society, and she developed some of her trademark style, the gardenia in her hair, her head tilted back, and just her style really started to finesse here because, you know, she's able to be solo, do her own thing. Like, fuck all these folks who won't let me do my thing. There'll be a lot of swearing right now because I am channeling
Channel
Lady
her.
Day.
Channel Billie.
Where's my cigarettes?
Okay. Hey, I was about to say, what's your cocktail, girl? Go ahead.
For you, Lady Day. And then here at the New York Cafe Society, she debuted her most famous song, God Bless the Child. Everybody loves God Bless the Child. My mom loves God Bless the Child. And then she can't, and like she wrote her own songs, and the song came to her as a kid after a fight with her mother about money. And so she was doing something that was just so unheard of. She was writing lyrics that just mattered, that came from her experience, her pain, her trauma, and was bearing it out there for people to witness. And I think why people loved her so much is they could feel that there's an authenticity, and people resonate with the vibrations that are coming out of her body, her soul. They're connecting with it, and they're bearing witness through it. And not only is she healing, she's healing others through it. Like, we're all, because everyone has trauma, and she's literally like putting out vibrational healing waves with her voice. Yeah. And so Strange Fruit, it was written by Abel Meerpool, who was, I believe he was Jewish, registered as part of the Communist Party. And so he already had some like red flags, you know, about him. Not from me, I don't care, but you know, the other people. You know, them other people, McCarthy. And he was like, I want you to sing this song. And she was like, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't, what is this song? I don't know about this. And she was like, all right, Prez, play something. And then she just was like, well, this is what I think I could do with it. And she was like, and she did it. And it was just like, it was her song from then on. It was her song. And then she went to her record label. She was like, I need to record this song. They were like, oh no, Billie, you can't do that here.
You can't talk about lynching.
Again, 1939. People are not talking about this. Like, I can't even.
But they're doing it. Oh, but we can't talk about it.
In a pioneer, and also, mind you, the movie starts off with this. 1939, she, you know, Strange Fruit. She records it, and in 1937, there was a bill, an anti-lynching bill, that reached the Senate and did not get passed. So people are, and still to this day, we do not have a federal anti-lynching law.
Correct.
2021. That's what year it is, just in case you forgot.
In case you're listening in the future.
And we still ain't got it then? You could be like, oh, wow, damn. And so Billie Holiday was like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna go do my thing, right? And so she recorded it with Commodore label instead, and she would perform it at these jazz clubs. And because, you know, white folks love going to these jazz clubs. They're like, we're gonna go somewhere black today. Ooh, what's so naughty? We're gonna get some chicken afterwards.
It's gonna be exotic.
We're not a zoo. And
hello,
we're not an experience. Okay. Ma'am. And so, but sometimes, like, you, of course, these white people are like, I just came here to dance, and I didn't come here to be reminded of this. And so sometimes some white people, they would walk out, but she was like, I'm gonna sing the song anyways because this matters. Radio stations sometimes wouldn't play it, but on the flip side, because it was so, it resonated with a lot of people. So some people didn't like it, but other people, it was very polarizing. But the people who did like it fucking loved it. Like, even the white people who loved it. And because they wouldn't play it on radio stations, it made it this thing like, you've got to hear this song. Because it was just talking about things that nobody was talking about. The lyrics. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Like, and the way she sings this, the way she sings it.
I cry every time I hear that song. Every time.
And, Andra Day said that it took filming this movie for her to understand it on a different level. Cause I, know the song is, it's about lynching. But when you hear it, she's like, every time I sing the song now, she's like, I don't want anybody clapping. There should be no clapping. I don't even want people to finish listening to the song. It should be, I got to go do something. It's not, this isn't a beautiful song. It's a painful song, with the lyrics, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth. Like the lyrics are just so powerful in the way that she sings it. It's just, and she she resonated with the song. Obviously, she kept singing it. People were like, "Oh, don't sing it," and she was like, "I'm gonna sing it." But then she would go to places and they would be like, "Sing Strange Fruit," like they would be yelling out in the back. And she, and even though she was getting, people loved this song. And one time, because she essentially had gotten from Harry Anslinger, who we're gonna get to in a moment, who ran the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and they had written her pretty much a letter. They're like, don't sing this song. You're gonna tell Billie Holiday to not sing a song. Like, Billie Holiday is like,
you deal with narcotics, leave me alone.
Go away. And so, yeah, you're right. Good flag.
I mean? Like, I'm sorry. The Bureau of Narcotics, sir, leave me and my song alone.
Yes, leave me and my song alone. And they were like, sing Strange Fruit in the back. And she was like, well, I'm going to sing this song. And she had to be forced off the stage after singing because the police were like going to try to like, arrest everybody. This did decrease in some of her nationwide. Again, it was very polarizing. But I think the people who it's sort of like this is a bad example. It's like when Taylor Swift finally opened her mouth and said something. Like some people, it made me be like, oh, okay, all right. I had never thought about her before, and now I give her the benefit of the doubt. I know. I just went to the whitest example I could.
Yeah,
but
you are correct. That was a bad example. Pero here we are.
Hey, do you want to lead this corner or what? Come on, come up with things on the fly.
I'm not judging. You said it, and I'm agreeing with your assessment. That's what I'm saying.
Because here's the thing, I'm rooting for everybody black. There was no example for me as a black person because I'm already rooting for everybody black, which is scientifically proven. I meant to bring this earlier, but it's a scientifically. Did I tell you about how it was scientifically proven?
No.
It's through a thing called linked fate. And it was developed by political scientist Michael Dawson. And it's when black people feel that their destinies are tied to the destinies of other black people. So when one black person is racially discriminated against, it sends a symbolic message to all black people that they too are vulnerable to this same type of discrimination based on having a shared skin color. And so there was a Pew Research in 2019 that corroborated this. It also means that when one black person succeeds, we all feel that same success. Yeah. It also means that like if Kanye West is like acting a fool, we're like, oh my God. Like when one person falls, like we all feel that because we all feel the same connection.
That's really interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I am very interested in that. And also like, I wonder if it has anything to do with when one person falls, we realize what that looks like for the community because the community has been seen from outside eyes and judged from outside eyes consistently.
Yes,
right? Then,
because
we're doing well. Somebody went to Harvard, somebody did XYZ, like somebody's a doctor, amazing. Like, see, we can do that too. But then like, oh, somebody, doesn't read the instructions on an adhesive. What does that look like?
You bringing up Tessa Brown?
I mean, I'm just speaking about
as an example
that people do or do not do. Go off. I'm sure she's a lovely human being, and I'm sure she was just in a rush. All the things. Period. It's what it is. I'm like,
But it is fair though too. Like Tessa Brown can't run into the like whole entire. It's well, I don't know. She's trying to be like, but you don't know what it's like to be a black woman, and maybe people don't. But I just think that this was
not smart.
Have
anything to do with reading the directions or ingredients, or even like, I didn't want to like get into it. However, just a little quick moment. I watched a bit of an interview with her today, actually, before I even knew like maybe we're gonna talk about it or whatever. Anyway, I watched it and she she was talking about how she was in a rush and she was out of the spray, the hairspray, and her eldest son had her car, so she couldn't go get any and she was rushing. But then she was like, yeah, and I'd used it, this spray before and it worked well. And the interviewer was like, oh, so you used it on your hair before? And she's like, no, like, for Christmas decorations. Fam, listen. So here's my thing. You had already used the shit for what it was supposed to be used for. And then you decided it was okay to use on your hair. And she's like, oh, I was going to come home soon and I could just wash it out. And the woman was like, okay, so did you realize that it wasn't going to wash out like right when you got home? She was like, no, it was like a week later. Sis, okay. In this one interview, what did you, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. Well, she's trying. It's the politics of Black women's hair. That's what she's trying to pivot to. But it doesn't
How does
have
that have
anything
anything to do
I
with
know.
your misstep? Don't come at me because I did a whole corner on Tignan laws. Okay, I'll tell you why we had to wrap it up and all of it.
And Tessa Brown coming in here and fucking this up. But see, that is linked fate, and so it connects back to us. The same reason, again, I've been using this example, but like when, Joss Whedon's fucking up, or Army Hammers eating people, all white people aren't feeling a connection to that. And it's even connect to, there's a South African concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. The term was coined in 1846, and it became very popular throughout. I think it won like a Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. But apparently, like, the study goes on to show that Black people, more than any other demographic, feel this same shared idea of linked fate more than any other group. And I think that makes sense because I don't like to play the oppression Olympics because nobody ever really wins. But in the last 400 years, I mean, it's been a rough road, and we've had to band together, especially here in the United States, more than any other group, and just to try to create for our own to be safe. So, back to Miss Billie Holiday, though.
Oh, okay. Let's circle back. Come on,
circle
Billie.
back to our lady.
Back,
so she lived a lot of life. She loved a lot, and she loved the ladies too. Yes, that's right. She was bisexual.
I didn't know that about this queen. How did I not know this?
Girl, I thought I was about to tell you nothing you didn't already done known. Okay, get ready to love her even more. This is why she is our queen.
Billie Holiday education came from like when I was younger and not.
Okay, that was they weren't keeping. Yes, and this was, in fact, this isn't even mentioned on all the different websites. This is in the movie because, of course, Lee Daniels, he fam, so he's like, let's put this in there. She has like a gay best friend in the movie too, and I'm like, yes, we have always existed. You are right.
Yes, I love that for you.
So. Yeah, so guys in the band, I mean, this is 1930s. Like, they would call her, like, Mr. Billie Holiday, because she would just roll with, like, she drank and smoked as much as they did. Like, she was fucking rocking and rolling, because she's like, I'm Billie Holiday. She dated Louise Crane, who was a prominent American philanthropist, and also American actress Tallulah Bankhead. And Tallulah is in the film, played by, what's her name from Russian Doll? Natasha Lyonne. Plays Tallulah Bankhead. She also had a well-documented affair in the early 40s with Orson Welles.
Ooh.
Yeah. So she had many different relationships. Some of them were, many of her relationships, at least with men, were very destructive, abusive. She had a lot of dogs. She loved her dogs. In 1941, she married James Monroe, and through him, she would pick up the habit of heroin. And when they divorced, she unfortunately kept that habit of heroin. That shit is addictive. I will say this. Watching the movie, I have never seen, I don't think I've seen heroin in a lot of movies, and it just does not look like a lot of fun. It does not look fun. Let me go on the record. Doesn't look fun. Don't do it. Like, it's one thing you watch a movie, people doing like cocaine or they're doing Molly, you're like, okay, it looks kind of fun, but heroin does not look like a good time.
There was one movie in like the 90s that heroin was
Clockwork
again.
Orange.
No, well, I mean, yes, but no. It was with Marlon Wayans was in it.
Oh, Requiem for a
Requiem for a
Dream.
Dream.
Oh,
Oh, I
oh
hated it. I
God.
hated it.
Oh, oh,
Oof.
my arm.
It still gives
Ow.
me like
My
chills.
arm still hurts when I
Yeah,
just saying the name Requiem for a
yeah,
Dream. My arm
yeah,
hurts. And is it there? Is it
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh, ass to ass. It is
Oh,
just a movie. When you at
I
UC
just got
Santa
chills.
Cruz,
Like I like for real.
UC Santa Cruz, if you got like caught like underage drinking or like smoking like pot or something, they'd make you watch Requiem for a Dream and like write a paper on it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was the work you had to do. It's
I
pretty
mean,
good.
terrifying enough. That'd scare me
Yeah.
straight.
Woof, it's a lot. So
Sorry, go
Harry
ahead.
Harry Anslinger and the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. So he is the godfather of the war on drugs. So again, this woman is the cornerstone of not only the civil rights movement, but the war on drugs, which was a tool to again go after black people. And he's such a dumbass. So part of his career highlights was overseeing towards the end of prohibition. Like he did not like people having fun. He was like, oh, we're gonna make sure this prohibition thing happens. People were like, fuck that, we're voting it over, get out of here. So he was bitter. He had a chip on his shoulder. He's like, I need another thing to win because I lost the war on prohibition, so I got something else. He was also on top of being a loser, he was also a racist. And so much, in fact, that his own
No.
senator in Pennsylvania said that he should not be holding the position that he does because of his frequent use of the N-word in person, in documents, and his overall hatred of black people.
Wow.
And this is like a white senator in like the 1940s saying this.
That's amazing.
So, you know,
Good on that
probably
person for being a real human.
yeah. So, two things that Harry Anslinger hated: drugs, and drug addicts, and black people. And so here you see this convergence of Billie Holiday, who embodies both of those things. And so for him, Billie Holiday was just like this perfect amalgamation for him, you know, and, you know, she's also successful. He's just foaming at the mouth. He just hates everything about her, you know, and in, you know, 1939, again, she's singing Strange Fruit. There's no civil rights movement. It's just her. There's no protest songs. It's just her. And she got a letter I had mentioned from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. They were like, don't you sing this song. And she was like, I'm Billie Holiday, gonna do what Billie Holiday gonna do. I'm gonna sing this song. And she just kept singing it. And that made him even more mad, right? And he was just so threatened by it. And it just, and it's interesting because she refused to, this song was bringing up a lot of emotions and thoughts for people, is reminding them of like the actual caste system that we have here and this horrible lynching practice that was happening here in the United States. And it's interesting because if she just had stopped singing the song, they would have left her alone. But she, right. And it's just so interesting that she just was so like, you know, having to sing the song with no other actual movement even occurring. She was the movement. You know, they would say to her, why can't you just behave? You know, which I think is just so interesting to say that to a black woman. Just, why can't you just behave?
Ma'am.
And if you think about it, she's got this addiction, and I highly recommend Johann Hari, who his book, The First and Last Days of the War on Drugs, which chronicles a lot of the stuff from the movie comes from this book of his. And so he was saying, you know, if you think about it, she had this heroin addiction because she had been chronically raped as a child, and she had, you know, all this grief and pain, and she had lost her mother and never really got over that, and these terrible relationships. And she was also resisting white supremacy. And then when she insisted on continuing on her fight as an American citizen to sing Strange Fruit, like Anslinger was like, I'm gonna destroy you. Like it just was too much for this white man, for this black woman to do this. And so this was a lot of what the movie is about, is in this era. And it's interesting because you see so much shenanigans from the FBI. I've been watching so many movies, which is why I was like, let me take a break and watch Minari or The White Tiger, just like another people's journey and struggle. Because Fred Hampton, Judas and the Black Messiah, there was an FBI like informant, like Anslinger had black FBI informants try to become friends with her to try to, you know, plant drugs on her, to try to like, you know, do all this stuff. You had that with Fred Hampton. which you see in the Judas and the Black Messiah. If you watch Spike Lee's Malcolm X movie, FBI doing all kinds of shenanigans there, any of the Dr. King movies, it's a miracle that Black people are even alive today with J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, what they were up to. It's a fucking miracle. And again, they were just trying to keep intact this caste system. So
sorry, y'all. I'm just having a moment.
Of course, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Well, but she would go on to do, you know, her thing. She had a lot of, you know, hit records. She Lover Man, it climbed to number 5 spot on the R&B charts. It made up to the 20 on number 20 at the top of the pop charts. And, you know, she really did create a lot of our just modern music and its sound. She had a boyfriend, Joe Guy. He also started doing heroin with her. So a lot of people she's meeting just doing heroin, right? Again, all this trauma and stuff. She's also doing this movement by herself, right?
Yeah.
And nervous going onto the stage too. Like that's, you know, energy and nerves and all kinds of stuff, right? It's a lot of work doing what she's doing, surviving what she's been doing. And she was a worldwide legend. She got to work with Louis Armstrong, one of her idols. She appeared with him in the film New Orleans, although she was a maid, but she was, you know, hey, listen, where she came from, and she's like, let me be up in this movie, let's go.
Hey, let's go.
She did end up in prison through just some bullshit that the FBI had. You know, they had the informant. She ended up, you know, getting arrested. When she got released, her new manager got her to perform at Carnegie Hall. She was like super nervous, but she's out of prison, and her biggest fear is people are going to forget her. Isn't that wild? And we're still talking about you today, Miss Holiday. And she performs at Carnegie Hall, but Anslinger, being the asshole that he is, made sure that her cabaret license was revoked, so she couldn't perform at cabarets or clubs or anything like that.
My gosh.
So she ended up with New York, with John Levy, who became her boyfriend and manager. She was loving a lot of different people. He was an asshole as well, which would not surprise you, but he helped her get back into the scene because he had a nightclub and she could perform there. She went off to Europe with, I think it was a different husband. She had been then married to somebody else. Yes, this guy McKay. They would go off. They went off to Europe in about 1954. And you know who was loving Black people at that time? Europe, France. So she was up in France singing her thing. She wrote her autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, which was a movie. Have you seen the movie Lady Sings the Blues, starring Diana Ross and Billy D?
I haven't. Is it a whole mess?
Directed, and I think it's produced and directed by Barry Gordy. I think I just saw a trailer. I recommend watch the trailer after you watch the movie, after Billie Holiday, the United States vs. Billie Holiday, and you're gonna be like, are we in an alternate universe? Because their story of Billie Holiday was very like celebrate. It was just like all the good stuff,
magic.
Camp and magic. And I think also the time it's coming out, so it's just like Black excellence, and Barry Gordy obviously wanting to uplift and trying to, like, her name was sludged for so long, right? And so he's trying to trudge it up, but just the good stuff. It's just the PG version. She just and Diana Ross is just being Diana Ross singing Billie Holiday music.
Oh my god, which is hilarious and magical to think about. Also, I just want to like point out for those of you who aren't seeing the images of all of Billie's lovers and partners, she was a very equal opportunity lover and a very interracially inclined being, which I'm so here for, especially in the times. And she's like, you know what? I would like to take a lady lover, and is she white? Maybe so. Is my next lover a Black man? Sure. Is my next? I'm just like, go off, girl. Go. You know, do. Absolutely.
I just had a That's So Raven moment. This is what I see for you.
Oh my god, I'm so
excited. A one-woman Billie Holiday show. I think that there are so many resonating factors. She is like your spirit goddess guide. She is if you were to do Cinderella, you would be Brandy, and you'd be playing Cinderella, and she'd be your godmother.
She'd be my Whitney Houston.
She's your Whitney Houston. Yeah, like I see this for you, like a one-woman show, and doing Billie Holiday, telling that story. There's a lot of not a lot of parallels, because never mind.
I mean, yeah.
I'm
Black and I sing and I'm queer. Like that's I'm about it. I'm so into it.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not being chased down by the FBI yet. I mean, with this podcast,
I'm also not a heroin addict. So
That's why I had to stop myself. I'm like, no, Sam, I see a lot of parallels between you and Billie Holiday.
Listeners are just like,
Okay,
ooh,
hold
is Sam
on.
okay? Is Sam
Hold on.
okay?
Sam, are you okay? I know a clinic.
Can you imagine just like the floods of DMs? Corner
Sam,
kids,
I'm
I love you.
so
I know you would
sorry.
care for
She's
me, but
fine.
I
She's
I do
fine.
not, in fact, have a heroin addiction.
What I meant was just black queer sings. That was pretty much it. And the style. So there it is. So
Into
her last Louis McKay, asshole. He was very abusive. The two were arrested in 1956 for narcotics. They were married in Mexico the following year. Just like, I just want to give you a hug, Billie Holiday. I really wanted. Yes. And she gave her final performance, New York City, May 25th, 1959, and shortly after, she was admitted to the hospital for her heart cirrhosis. She had liver problems. I'm not a doctor. I like how you're falling around like, what did you? Are you having a seizure? Sound it out. She had a what?
Who?
She had liver problems. Okay. Her liver was fucked up.
Into it. I'm with you. Go ahead.
And so she was a heroin addict, right? And so she needed methadone, and the first hospital refused. They were like, nope. So then she went to the second one, and they're like, yeah, of course, we're a hospital. We're going to save your life. We're going to give you the methadone. But Anslinger was like, I got you now. And he was like, just trying to get her to like fess up to stuff and like, who's your supplier? Like, again, just going, she wasn't like a drug dealer. Why are you spending so much time on her? Right? Like, she had a drug issue. But is the full forces of your American tax dollars, people at the time, going towards going after this woman?
Right.
She wasn't this massive drug dealer, like she did drugs. Okay. And he was like, you gotta fess up to all this stuff. And she was like, suck my ass. Like, cause that was one of her catchphrases. I don't know if she's in the movie, she said that to him, but I don't know. Like, it was one of her catchphrases.
Remarkable. Suck my ass. I love that.
Her friend, it was one of her favorite phrases to say, so she might have said it in that moment. And she's like, you ain't got nothing. And then she told one of her friends, she was like, I'm gonna die in this hospital. They're gonna kill me. I just have this feeling. And people were protesting outside because they knew it was up. They knew how faulty the FBI was. They were hashtag free Billy. Like, that's what that was. Like, they were doing it before, like a legit thing.
Yeah.
And Anslinger had the hospital after 10 days stop administering methadone, because that was, I guess, some sort of like policy or something. So then they are, this is all where it gets really funky to me. She's in the hospital. They then had arrested her for heroin possession in the hospital. That doesn't sound right. How would she have gotten heroin in a hospital? So they arrested her. She then died from alcohol and drug related complications because she's in withdrawal. Like, and they stopped giving her methadone. And she died handcuffed to her bed by the ankle. Wow. And she had just $750 to her name, which was $748 more than Dorothy Dandridge. So just this tragic story of women dying around this time. Black women and artists who went through these just horrible journeys, just trying to live their lives.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the journey of Billie Holiday. Not all of that is in the movie, so don't feel like I'm spoiling anything, but it's also history, so I don't know if I can really you need to just sort of, know these things. And again, like, Billie Holiday is the convergence of the war on black people. What happens when we're so powerful that white people just can't stand it? What happens when we speak out? You can see it with Colin Kaepernick. This shit is still happening today. Drug addiction, right? And how they treat and vilified drug addiction specifically because it was convenient of who it targeted: black and brown and poor people. So they could vilify it. We can make it almost non-human. Anslinger said that people deserved it if they were on drug addictions, then it was on their own fault. And yeah,
it's even further than addiction. Like, the number of black beings, specifically black males, who are in prison to this day because of possession of marijuana, and the amount of white beings who are making millions and millions of dollars off of it.
Senators who voted for all of these laws to target, people with marijuana possession, former senators who voted for that, who voted down legalizing marijuana, who are now like John Boehner owns a marijuana distillery or whatever it's called, right?
Dispensary.
Like
Yeah.
dispensary. Like he owns like a huge, making millions of it, has invested in it, right?
Like the fact that there are three dispensaries like within walking distance of me is I'm like, okay, but then
Can we free everybody now?
uh,
Can everybody get out and then excuse their record so they can get work?
thank
And
you. Thank
and
you.
and again, the war on drugs, it makes my heart break, Sam, because you think about how many lives our communities were destroyed. They use this as the excuse to destroy us.
Hmm.
That's what the war on drugs was.
Yeah.
It was targeted, and that's what they do. That's why white supremacy is, it is so tricky. It is, I think it's even more sinister because they can cloak it and dress
Yeah.
it as different things and say, "Oh, no. We're not targeting black people. It's the drugs. We just really want to get these off." No. That's bullshit. And it's, when you watch the movie, you see how even us as black people, how sometimes we, to survive, we might even turn on each other. When you see these
Mm.
movies where it's black people as the FBI informants, you're like, but what? But as the survival crabs in a barrel sort of situation from what they created. And they had said to her, why can't you be more like Ella Fitzgerald? And Billy was like, I don't need, like, this is people within our own community. And she's like, I don't need punishment or ridicule. I need help. She
Mm.
needed help. Think about if back then in 1930s, we didn't treat people with drug addictions. We treated like someone who had diabetes. It would be like if someone who had diabetes and was caught with insulin, we were
Mm.
like, you're going to prison.
Mm.
And if you think about it, a lot of people have diabetes because of the terrible foods that are put into our American food system. And so people are products of the system that has, created them. And so it also looks at, just like the how we treat addiction. And it's interesting now that there's this aha that's happening with people, because now addiction is now affecting white people with opioids, right? So now it's a huge crisis.
Yeah. And
Great.
Vicodin and soccer
Yep.
moms and
It
yeah.
it it takes until it comes for them. Once it
Mhm.
starts affecting white people, that's the same thing of why there is a vaccine, because it wasn't like with AIDS, it affected gay men. Nah. So
Mhm.
these genocides or these things that happen, and they disguise it as something else. And so when you look at like even police raids, no, and like John Oliver does a great segment of it on this week, on This Week Tonight, and you just look at the disproportion of obviously black and brown communities who are targeted by these drug raids, and that they should be illegal. They don't work.
Mhm.
Dangerous situation for everybody, everybody. It's just dangerous, right? I've had police like storm down my door. I thought I was gonna, die, and
Right.
luckily
Yeah.
I didn't get
Yeah.
shot that night. And you look at like how white people are treated and black people are treated. When Judy Garland was having her issues with drug abuse, Anslinger went to her and was just like, you should just go away for a while. Just go away for a while. So it wasn't about the drugs.
Right.
McCarthy, who is he was the Trump of his day. He had issues with opioids. Anslinger just helped him out, right? So it wasn't about the drugs. It was about black people.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's I just think the story of Billie Holiday is such an important one. This all the intersections that it hits, and my hat goes off to Miss Billie Holiday to be the lone person standing in this fight of so many things that we are now still processing and dealing with. Like,
Yeah.
put her on the flags. I put her on all the flags.
Gosh, what an incredible human being. I just, ugh. Billie Holiday. Who knew? It's incredible to hear so much about her story that had been omitted from when I first learned about
Mm-hmm.
her, or because of, my age when I first learned about her story, I didn't get all the meat, all the goody, or from the Times or whatever it may have been. But it is even more tragic a story than I remembered. And quiet as kept, I'm very glad I didn't watch that biopic this week because I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Yeah, no, you do. Yeah, I watched it. I bared witness. You didn't. But thank you for going on this ride with me, especially because I didn't honestly know what a stan you were. When I just like, oh, watch this movie, girl. I did not realize like that's where you're coming in. And so also too, like, what a gift that I was able to give you for someone that you love so much that like I was like, to give you new nuggets that you didn't know, to love her even that much more. So, yay.
Love that. Yes, yes, yes.
For you, Lady Day, we love you.
Love you, Lady Day. Rest in power, sis. Two wonderful Black queer women. I mean, we can take the queer out for a second. So these two wonderful Black women.
Okay, yes.
So my question is, we're going to put a question out to the kids. Why exactly does the United States of America want to celebrate me for 2 months in a row?
Because we love Sam Jackson, because it's about damn time.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because it's time. Yeah, because we actually get 2 months of celebrating Billie Holiday.
Yeah, 2 months of celebrating Billie Holiday, 2 months of celebrating Tessa Thompson, 2 months of celebrating Janelle Monáe. I mean, if we're gonna bring it back, let's bring it back. You know what I mean?
You know what? We're just gonna play
celebrating Janet Jackson.
I'm gonna play all the same corners. You know what? No more episodes for the rest of the month. We're just playing everything we did last month because it all still applies. Women's History Month.
Yes, into it. So yeah, so the question is, we get a lot of, well, February is Black History Month, which is like great, but like, why is it the shortest month of the year, and why they only got 28 days, and what's that?
Okay, you got a lot of questions.
Listen, maybe you could do some research before you start to talk shit all the time.
Got that Google.
Mm-hmm. But that's okay. I Google for you, so it's
okay.
Fine. But I would also like to talk to, since we're now officially in March, this is our first episode in March. Right.
Sorry, I just had a flash of like, what is time? March? Like, what is this? I saw someone had a meme in the calendar was like like Jan first remember. It's the 43rd of Jan remember. Like 1,000%. Everything just is all the same.
Y'all, we have been in a panorama for a whole year.
Almost was gonna say it, and then I didn't because I almost in the Ponder replay has been going for like almost a year. Ooh. We've been a Ponderosa for a year.
We've been a Puerto Rico.
This panini has been going on for a year, y'all. Oh Lord,
this Patricia's too much. Oh, it's too much. Yeah. So we started this Patricia celebrating women, and we are celebrating women again. Lord, my whole soul. But the question is, why these months, right? Why these months? I want to take us down a little history lesson about why it's February and March that you get to celebrate me and all the other beautiful Black women in your life and or your history and or the universe.
Get 'em.
So what we have already covered here at Minority Corner, I just want to like tag this back. If you were listening at the beginning of this month, well, again, last month, beginning of February. Right, I know. It's
what is time? It's a Ponder replay. We don't know.
Did we just say it at the same time?
We did, because this is what happens. And in the same cadence and the same mumbly throwaway cadence.
Listen, Sarah, get that in there, girl. It's coming. Oh my gosh, my life. All right. Sarah, we love you. You're amazing.
We love you.
So far, if you have been listening regularly, which you should, go off, Korner Kid, appreciate you. We have already covered that in the 1920s. It was originally Negro Week, which was February, because of February 12th, which is Lincoln's birthday, and February 14th, which is Frederick Douglass's birthday. And then the first official Black History Month was started in Kent State, which is according to like the Kent State like newsletter.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? But
like, we started that. We started that.
Right?
Which,
yeah.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, you're right.
But apparently, it is the first recorded Black History Month, which was in 1970. And then 6 years later, it was recognized by President Ford at Bicentennial,
Mm.
and then the nation as a whole was like, "Hey, Black History Month, let's go."
Because
So,
that's surprising, because Ford is boring as fuck. I'm just going to say it. Pretty sure
yeah,
he pardoned Richard Nixon, but at least he was like, okay, we should have a Black History Month. So I
he
guess,
hey,
I
got me to
mean,
go off. He
I
was trying
also
to be a
do.
man of the times.
Right. And I can applaud that. He lost his reelection, but okay. So but what I liked about this, I love that you brought this up, because I thought it was so interesting, because I know that so many people have always side-eyed and made such a joke about, oh, why is Black History like the shortest month, da da da. But
Yeah.
actually, when you look at it, it's like, if you think about it, when it first had started with Negro Week, and then it was the 1920s,
Hmm.
that's a stone's throw away from slavery. Like, someone's got eyes on their grandmother or parent
Yeah.
who was like, oh, I was a slave, right? Someone's got
Hmm.
eyes on them, right? Who's
Hmm.
alive, walking around. I used to be a slave. And
Right.
so, who are the big heroes of that time? Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. So of
Absolutely.
course I could understand this want, and it's so new too. I would imagine at that time, being a free people and being like, hey, what's our story and what's our history? Let's dig into this and do it.
And
Yeah.
and people were already celebrating their birthdays as a Juneteenth back in the day, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
oh, let's
Mm-hmm.
celebrate Lincoln's birthday, let's celebrate Frederick Douglass's birthday, because these are humans who have helped us get further than we have been. So
Yeah.
why not just make it a whole week? We already have two of the
Yeah.
days, make it a whole week.
Yes, and
Is
then the
really where
week,
it
it's
came
sort of
from.
like when you start celebrate, it's sort of like when you are in your 20s and you're like, you realize that you do a birthday week. You're like, oh, a day, let me do a birthday week. And then you're like, let me do a birthday month. It's sort of like that. And
I
you're
love that
like,
you said when you're in your 20s. I feel attacked. I just would like to say
because
that
are you
out
still
loud.
doing it?
I do what I want when I want.
Go off,
So
Sam Jackson.
sometimes
Go
she has a
off.
birthday month. You know what I'm saying? Like, it
It's
depends
been a
on the
while.
year.
I'm
This year she
here
sure
for it.
didn't. This year I was
Okay,
like, "Oh
no
my god, it's
one's
my
ever.
birthday? Are you sure?
You're
That's
lucky
not
to have a birthday minute, okay? I had a birthday
sis.
hour.
You know
I
what
was
I'm
like,
talking
we're
about?
doing it now, and I'm sad
A
now.
whole
So
thing. A
that's
whole
it.
thing.
But I like, because it's
So
like it
yeah.
takes away that joke. So let's start. I'm gonna start educating my people of like, don't
Right.
joke about it being the shortest month anymore, because it has meaning. There's actually, it was purposely done. Like,
Hmm.
okay, you know.
So and I think some of the magic of it is that it came from, it wasn't simply uh oh well, we celebrate these two people, so we're going to start a week, or we're going to start it goes even a bit deeper. So the idea began with Carter G. Woodson, who is a Harvard scholar, educator, and his homies back in
Okay.
1915. He was inspired by attending a 3-week national celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Emancipation, which was in 1915. So that's just 11 years
Mm.
later, things start popping off, right? So Woodson joined 4 others, so his homies, in founding the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which was later known as the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. Um,
Oh,
Same.
okay. So that's when
So he
that's
was like,
starting.
"Hey, y'all, we need to, celebrate our people and what we've been
Hmm.
through, and how far we've come, and all these things. So I'm going to start this association. We're going to start writing some papers. We're going to get the word out that we are to be celebrated." And that was 1915 that this is started. In 1924, spurred by Wilson, his college fraternity, which is mm, Omega Psi Phi.
Okay. Oh, Omega Sci-Fi, part of the
Ew.
Divine Nine.
Let's go. Let's go. Introduced Negro History and Literature Week. And 2 years
Okay.
later, they were very determined to bring more attention to African American history. So him and his homies, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, launched Negro History Week fully and just said, "Let's go, let's make it happen." Uh, two
Snaps to
thousand.
that. I just, the pioneers. When you look back at the pioneers, like them, or Lady Day, like it's
Mhm.
because they're the onlys. Who else is doing this work? And they're creating it in very hostile surroundings.
Yeah, 100%. So he got together in 2000 or 2000, sorry,
Oh, it was like,
1915.
oh,
Ooh,
I would
Lord,
would not.
he's
You
still
know what?
alive.
wouldn't have surprised me if it was like, oh,
Hey.
we just started doing this
Yeah.
work. I would be like, yeah, that tracks.
Can you
You
even?
know, you don't even realize. Listen, we just had like what, four black people have won Golden Globes. Like,
Oof.
come on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I do. Ugh, still angry. I still got heart
That's
palpitations
right.
about that.
That's
Anyway.
right.
Oh Lord.
Golden Globes are
So
trash.
all these things, he's going quick, right? He's trying to really make this happen for the nation and make sure that everybody knows that it is time to celebrate us as African American beings, as Black beings. Um, so again, that it was 1915, and then 1924. He was like, you know what? Maybe we should do a week. Y'all celebrating these cute little days. Let's do a week. 1926, it really became a thing. But as early as the 40s, there were certain communities that were celebrating the whole month.
Mhm.
But of course, the civil rights movement came to pass and started to beef things up. So in the 60s, there was more attention to it. And then again, Kent was like, we did that. That was us. We did that right there in 1970. And we're like, all right, bro, go off,
Okay,
Kent.
we've
I see
been doing
you.
it, but okay,
But
you got into
cute
the
though.
Wikipedia page
Right.
before everybody else, so
Yeah.
okay.
The first quote recorded. I see you. I see you.
It was
And
good.
then, as we had said before, in 1976, the Association of African American Life History facilitated the widespread celebration of it, along with President Gerald Ford's urge for the whole country to celebrate.
Mhm.
And so far, thankfully, even though the last one was trifling, every president then from then on has urged the country to
Mm.
celebrate it as National African American History Month or National Black History Month or what have you. So
I mean, it's
it
like the least you can do. Like, it's such a low bar, but then it makes you realize when they don't do it, you're like, all you
yes,
had to do, like, all you had to do. And you know what? We're gonna have a conversation. Some of y'all need to come to the meeting because
hmm,
some of y'all still voted for this fool, and he
mm,
couldn't even say
hmm,
it's important to celebrate Black History Month.
hmm.
And you know what? I hate airing our business out this here because I know there's some white people listening. And it goes back, we don't like to do this. We don't like to have our fights out in front of other people because it goes back to our linked
Yes,
the shared linked history.
we need to
Our
be
linked fate.
united. Vote for everyone black,
Yes.
guys.
So
But
it
if
really
they
makes it
trifling, don't vote
hard.
for them. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. What is it, that guy
Mm-hmm.
Scott, Tim Scott or something?
Oh
The
no,
Black
Stacey Dash.
Republican. Oh, you know,
Homest? I don't know her.
Diamond
Anywho,
and Silk,
ugh,
Candace Owens. Oh, why am I speaking their names? Strike them from the record.
their names have no power here. Thank y'all.
I
Yeah.
rebuke you.
So that is the long and short of Black History Month. So it is February because of these powerful birthdays, but then because of these powerful Black beings who made it so and pushed and pushed and pushed. So y'all, it is not because it is the shortest month. It is because some dope shit happened in February, and we
Thank you
trying to
for
keep it
setting the.
together.
Thank you for setting that record because it was offbeat,
Hey, it was a little
scratching.
off. It was on the 1 and 3, and I said, "Hold on now."
Black History Month, the one and the three. Oh God, it's so hard to clap on the one and the three. I try sometimes just for fun. It's not
I can
easy.
only do it if you have like the church beat in you. You know,
Oh,
it's
that's true.
you
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean? It's
true.
that moment,
Yeah,
and then you're like, okay, I get it.
yeah. But you
So,
can't be at a Janet concert clapping
you
on the one and the
hey,
three.
you know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, can you even? Can you?
I can't.
I almost started to
Escapade
do it, and I
alive.
was like, I'm wasting time.
I
Look,
can't.
wasting time.
I'm wasting time.
Yeah, so that is where you were celebrating this part of me, this part of Janet, this part of Tessa,
Mm.
this part of Billy, this
It's
part of
part of
Andra,
me.
this part of
But
you.
this is where I got to get off the bus and I just
You
got to be
gotta
like,
get out,
okay, ladies, I'm going to
you
watch you
know.
all get in formation.
Hey, ladies,
I'm
show us
clapping at
how
you.
you celebrate. Mm.
Trying to get up on that one and that three.
Get on the 1 and 3, Kenny. Go off. But so what's interesting for me, having looked into this, is the kind of the similarities in how things got moved up the chain to a national level, and also the differences because a lot of this was the Women's International Women's Month uh, wasn't. Uh, The
What you
journey
trying to
didn't
say?
start with
Take your
what I'm trying to
time.
say, right. Listen, let me try to say this correctly and not sound crazy.
Take your
But
time.
uh there was a lot of legal action that happened with Women's History Month. And I have a
Mm.
feeling that legal action happened and a little more quickly because it was some white women saying, we want a month, and
Mm,
not some black
mm,
folks saying, hey,
mm-hmm.
we need to show our magic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it says,
Um,
anyway, here you go. Here it come.
yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So Women's History Month started again as a day, but as opposed to being necessarily connected to somebody's birthday or something like that, it started as International Women's Day, which is March 8th, which has been celebrated apparently in some way since 1911.
Okay, women's
But
suffrage.
you know what I'm saying? I was like, go off, go ahead. But not officially until 1975 by the United Nations.
And
So,
there was a lot of the stuff with the Equal Rights Amendment around that time trying to get passed.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, exactly. So then so again, it started as the day and the day kept going. In the 1970s, local groups and municipalities began celebrating Women's History Week because of International Women's Day. Again, these parallels. And
Mm-hmm.
according to the National Women's History Museum, one of the most notable celebrations was organized in Santa Rosa, California.
Okay, did not see that
Hello.
coming.
I was
Were they
same,
drinking
same.
wine
I
at the time?
obviously a little
Yeah,
rosé,
we should have a
rosé all
week.
day. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yes, yes.
which is great. But by the Education Task Force of the Sonoma County Commission and the Status of Women in 1978.
Oh, they were
Which
getting
I'm like,
off at that
okay,
winery.
educators, all these teachers being like, listen,
They were at a
it's
work
time.
retreat. They were
Mm-hmm.
educating themselves. Let's go get some
Mm-hmm.
wine. And then, you get enough wine in you. You're like, I know what we're going to do.
Listen, and you get enough wine drunk women, and then we got things to do. We ready.
Go
You think
off, ladies.
y'all were like, oh, she got sleepy and cute. No, she got determined. Okay.
She got
Serious.
sleepy and
It
cute.
is serious. No, that's not what happens at a
She
winery.
laid down
She is
and took a
determined
nap.
and ready to go.
She got
Absolutely
plans.
Not.
She
Not
come
I.
out with plans.
Ready to go with checklists and boxes and shit. We ready. So the movement itself was so popular that people began lobbying for more formal observance. And in 1980, Jimmy Carter
Ah, my
designated the
favorite.
first, you
I
know,
love Jimmy Carter. I wish I had been alive while he was president. He was ahead of his time.
ahead
Peanut
of his
farmer who likes to
time.
build houses. Okay, he didn't get the hostages. All right, move on.
Move on.
It was Ronald Reagan's fault because as soon as he got in, they were like, "Oh, look, the hostages are free." Suspect.
Listen, love a good
Fucking
ally, but this is not about a man, so we're gonna just smooth over
Okay,
him
you're
real
right.
quick.
Sorry, I just get excited about Jimmy Carter.
No, you can get excited. That's okay. No judgment, no judgment. But so he designated the first official National Women's History Week, beginning in, of course, March 8th
Okay.
of that year, and Congress passed it as a resolution in 1982.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, there's a whole lot of like legalities happening for this real quick. Y'all making it happen real fast.
It's also impressive because I imagine there's probably like 5 women in Congress at this time. Like women were not that popular. It wasn't really until after Clarence Thomas, that whole entire his confirmation, that women started being like, oh, hold up, we got to get involved. We going in here. There was there was a similar. It's like in 2018 you saw the rise of people from after Trump. Just a lot of different women, minorities, gays, and queer people.
Yeah, and that is actually really fascinating to think about how little influence women had in Congress to make the decision, but how much influence the women had being like, "Excuse me, sir, it's time." You know,
They were their own like caucus. Like I'm at their like at the convention. Like there was like which is so wild because it's like women are not they should not be a caucus. They're like over 51% of the population. Like it's a weird thing to be like, well, what do the women say? Like it's weird that's it's its own demographic in some ways, but of course just is how that they're a minority in that. But like they had this, they were a voting block.
Yes.
And yeah, so they were like, they would go out and they'd protest and they'd be like, okay, well, we gotta, give them
Hmm.
this Women's Month.
We talked a little bit about this with like the suffragists and how or suffragettes, excuse me, and how they're like all together, black women, white women, we're doing it together. And then there's like, oh, you don't like the black women? Cool, 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 cool. We just gonna be over here. Like, you know what? How like anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, ma'ams. So
Oh,
yes.
women, can we talk about black stuff too? I
Oh
don't
no!
know.
I basically what we were talking about. The Senate basically was like, "Oh, we don't like the black women thing." It's like, okay, cool. We'll just drop the black women. But
Yes.
so will you like? Can we have the vote though? Can we have it? Oh,
Yes. And meanwhile, the black women were there fighting along,
fighting
and they just
alongside. Yep, we just
white
dropped him.
women.
But again, let's move. Let's move forward. Let's
Okay,
past. But
bygones,
okay, we're still
bygones.
bygones. Women's History Month. Let's go. International
Yes,
Women's History Month.
let's go. All the ladies.
Um, so of course, after the resolution was passed in 1982 for the week, certain states and communities started to celebrate the whole month, similar to BHM. And then in 1987, Congress declared March as official Women's History Month. So as we talked about before, at first it just started as Women's History or International Women's Day, which is March 8th. But there are also a few other dope things that happened in March, not necessarily people's birthdays, but things that we can be proud of. So earlier in the 20th century, two significant women's suffrage events took place in March. So again, talking about the suffrage, we know, it is what it is. But the first major suffrage parade took over Washington, D.C. on March 3rd in 1913. And the National Women's Party, political group dedicated to women's suffrage, was officially formed in March 1917. So again, that was still when they was being a little trifling, but go off women,
Yeah, that is not a time period I'd want to be in, because you know what's coming. You're in World War I too at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Knock, knock, knock. Here comes the pandemic.
So there are two more fun facts. Oh my gosh, my Roman numeral is foolish. Title 9.
You got Roman numerals over there? Look at you.
What 1x is 9, right?
Oh, Title 9.
Thank you. Got you. Yeah. I'm like, I know Title 9, but like, is my brain being dumb? I'm dyslexic, y'all. I have a hard time. Anyway. So
tell about the Title 9.
You already know. We talked about it a little bit a second ago. You mentioned it. Which prohibits sex discrimination in all federally funded education programs, was passed by the Senate on March 1st, 1972, and it became law later that year. In fact, the educators who formed the first Women's History Week a few years later did so to help schools comply with Title IX regulations.
And they still need help today.
Still need help today. But I love that it's like, okay, this little piece of March, this little piece of March, this last little piece that I have for y'all is that the Equal Rights Amendment, which you mentioned a bit ago, a constitutional amendment which guarantees rights regardless of sex, past those assured by the 19th Amendment, passed the Senate on March 22nd, 1972. That was still not fully ratified, but we'll talk about that at a different time.
It's wild. And I really recommend watching. I learned a lot about the ERA through the FX series Mrs. America, which is on Hulu. There's some stuff. Listen, it's made for TV, so it's some of the drama is heightened or whatnot. But the facts and the experience that these human beings are experiencing, like, you will understand a little bit more what it was like. And it's so wild that even to this day, the ERA to this day has not been passed. The Equal Rights Amendment still to this 2021. This is so wild. Like, we're like, all these things that just still haven't been done. There's been like the theme. Like, there's all these things that we're like still haven't been done. Let's get on it. The fact that the Equal Rights Amendment has been passed, it was almost passed by some states, and it's just all this like shenanigans where it was almost going to get passed. The main criticism about that show, Mrs. America, is that I think Phyllis Schlafly or whatever, Kate Blanchett's character, was given too much of a credit in terms of being this figure that helped to stop the ERA, was some of the criticism that I had heard. Yeah, it's so crazy how it was so close to getting passed. And then, I think there needs one more state left, but then there's some stuff because it's like, oh, well, it was supposed to be ratified within a certain deadline, and that deadline is far from me. It's been passed. But I think Virginia recently was the most recent state because it went, their local legislature went blue, and I believe they were the most recent state to ratify it.
Wow. That's it. Ugh. So we got a long way to go on both ends. It's like the moral of today's story. There's a long way to go for Women's History Month to become something that we could look at and say, oh, remember when we needed to specifically have a month to celebrate women? Yeah. And we have a long way to go to when, remember when we needed to have a month to specifically remember to celebrate Black peoples, especially when Utah curriculums, public schools decide to make it optional. Let's not forget that just happened a minute ago. Like a few days ago.
Check the
let's check the Fitbit.
What is that? What does that say?
What would that say? That said about a week and a half ago.
Wow. Yikes. Yeah. Get that 1619 project in all the classes, okay? Get it in there. All of them. Oof. Well, that was the information. So go do something.
Go do something with it. Y'all, please go celebrate Miss Billie Holiday this month if you did not get the chance to celebrate her last month and all the time, because it is still her time.
It is still her time. It is still her month. So happy. Go off, ladies. I'm here for it. Go off, Ladies Month. Okay.
Love it. I would like to just celebrate Minority Corner because my Minority Corner is a 2/3 women's team.
We always
we're out here.
Always.
And we are also 2/3 Black.
Yeah.
And fully queer. Look it up.
We have it. Ooh, are we thirsty or what, y'all? It's been a long pandemic. Well, that's the show. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Sam Jackson for being here on the show today. And don't forget, you can also subscribe to the Minority Corner podcast wherever you pod, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are, we are there. So be sure to tune in so you can get a brand new episode every Friday coming into your ear holes. It'll be great. We love y'all. Thank you all so much for watching Minority Corner, because together we're the majority.